like to introduce Creative Marketing Strategies. John Doig is the Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at Scotiabank. He oversees Scotiabank's significant involvement in Canadian hockey, including all 7 NHL teams and league sponsorship, and over 5,000 youth teams, the Canadian Hockey League and Canadian Women's Hockey League. Shannon Hosford has spent more than 15 years with Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, overseeing all communications and brand functions for the Toronto Raptors, Leafs, Toronto FC, Toronto Marlies, and the MLSE Foundation. A graduate of Western, she brought the Raptors' We the North campaign to life, leading to Strategy.com naming her Marketer of the Year in 2014. Laurie Kepron has served as the Vice President of Integrated Marketing for the National Hockey League since 1996. In over 20 years in this role, she's been responsible for developing the NHL's Canadian and North American marketing strategy, along with expanding the league's global fan base. She graduated from Asper School of Business at the University of Manitoba. And Marnie Starkman is the Vice President of Marketing and Events for the Toronto Blue Jays. She's held that position since November 2017. She's worked with the Blue Jays for 9 years, and in 2018 was named a 5 to Watch Award recipient. With the Blue Jays, she's responsible for all brand and visual identity standards. And finally, our moderator will be Dr. Cheri Bradish, is the chair of Loretta Rogers Research and Sports Marketing with the Ted Rogers School of Management at Ryerson. That's a role she's had since 2013, and her area of research is in sports marketing and sponsorship and sport and social impact, including broader global sport for development concerns. So this panel, the Creative Marketing Strategies.
There we go.
If I don't follow her.
Thank you, Carolyn. I'm excited to be here with the powerhouse panel in front of us, and I would be remiss, and I think we'll come back to this, Trevor and Brian, to say how nice it is to have a balanced female panel, or a balance of female at the panel, because we see that and need to see that more and more in conferences. So we're moving in a good direction. So I'm excited to be here, as I said. Oh, do they have a comment already? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to be here, as I said, and I thought what we would do, and I thank you for the introductions, is just allow each panelist to speak a little bit further about specifically their roles and how perhaps they are where they are today, a little bit more deeper around creative marketing and how you activate that in your specific organization. So Marnie, I think we'll start with you and
sure,
work around
I can
the
give a little background on myself. So my education, I went to University of Toronto for business. Actually took my master's at Ryerson. It was a joint Ryerson-York program prior to all the great work that Cheri's done. Did my master's there and then freelanced. I wanted to be in sports production. So I freelanced for a couple years, and then I had a great opportunity to actually work far under Shannon at MLSE for my first few years. Which was just an unbelievable experience to sort of get my feet wet in sports and more sports production. I then left and freelanced and had some Olympic experience. I think I needed to do that for probably my career, and then landed with the ball club. I grew up around baseball, so that definitely helped. But I started on the game entertainment side, and we really looked at our game day 8 years ago and baseball in general, what we needed to do to sort of improve the fan experience. So I started on the game day side and then slowly morphed game day into promotions. Now our team, baseball is a little bit different than hockey and basketball. So our team oversees everything from brand, visual identity, events and concerts. We then have promotions, giveaways, game entertainment, our amateur baseball and community marketing outside of our foundation, our players and our players' families. So our marketing team encompasses quite a bit of different aspects of marketing. So that's sort of my role currently with the club.
Thank you. Laurie?
Good. I was 10, and I had 2 younger brothers who decided that I should go in our basement in net with oven mitts, and I should stay there for 4 hours while they took shots. And that was my start in the professional NHL. And then back in the day, I actually submitted an application in the mail to the Winnipeg Jets 1.0. and they were looking for an account executive, and they actually had, I did find out, about 400 applicants, and that was before sports marketing was a real thing. It hadn't been titled yet. So I was very fortunate. A woman by the name of Madeline Hansen decided that I was going to get that opportunity, and little did I know that really would create my path, my career path. So it was a great experience working for a club, working with ownership at the time. That was Barry Shankro, and also working through a time when the club was struggling, and then eventually in that short period of time that I was there, the 3 years became the Phoenix Coyotes. So then I was like, you know what, I'm going to move to Toronto. My parents didn't believe me. So I moved to Toronto and got a job at the NHL. I just sort of thought that that's what you did, and now I realize that that's sort of not what you just do. But it was just wonderful, and that's actually where I met Brian Burke. He was one of the first sort of senior management that I had met at the league, one of my first friends, so I'm incredibly grateful for that. And as I've worked at the league since '96, I wasn't a VP at that time. So I've worked in various areas of marketing and partnerships. I did something called club consulting, where we go out to all the clubs and work to make their business practices stronger. And then managing North American business portfolios. I'm also doing now some work in the women's space with another woman by the name of Susan Doig. So really, as most of you will probably find, as your careers continue and you continue to ask for more, you will get more, and which has been sort of great and sometimes not necessarily wanted, but it's been awesome. So we can talk a little bit more about the marketing aspect of that in a few minutes. Thanks. Shannon?
Thank you. Well, good morning. I really see my role as bringing our fans to their feet for the Leafs, Raptors, and TFC, and most recently the Argos. I won't go into, I've been at MLSE now for 18 years, so I got there through going to George Brown College. But really my career highlight at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment has been given the privilege, or the honor I should say, of rebranding not only the Toronto Raptors but the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's been a great long road, and I look forward to talking a little more about it.
Great. John?
Okay, so I work at a bank. And for most people, banking's really not cool. You talk about the Leafs and the Raptors, and you talk about all the exciting things that the NHL brings to the table, and you know, talk about being part of the Olympics. And we're a bank, so we have mortgages and savings accounts, and
cool.
and really interesting. You know, our mortgage kind of looks like the Green Bank's mortgage, which kind of looks like one of the Blue Bank's mortgages, which kind of looks like that Claret Bank's mortgage. And so those are the actual colors, right? Claret. So I'd say to you that the opportunity to work with sports brands and partner with the sports brands in Canada and around the world. So in Canada, hockey's the obvious one. But I'd say 12 years ago when we did our first NHL deal, we signed the deal and we walked out of the office and went, why didn't someone else do this deal? Why are we the first bank that did a deal with the NHL? And then, you know, 12 years later, we've been replicating this model in Latin America with football, soccer, and you know, we're official bank of FC Barcelona in Latin America. And if Hawkinson has anything to do with it, we'll soon be Real Madrid. But seriously, that ability to differentiate is super exciting. We also have to work a little harder than companies that perhaps sell sticks and skates and pucks. Because I mentioned we sell mortgages, we sell deposit accounts and checking accounts and credit cards. So we have to work really hard to be relevant to the customers. And we, I believe, over the years have earned that connection with hockey in Canada, with great partners, with MLSE, with the NHL, and with many teams across the country. But most importantly, in our experience, was taking those assets and making sure there's access to the grassroots level. I mean, I think the intern said we have about 5,000 kids hockey teams. Well, we supported over 1 million kids, and the numbers are closer to 10,000 a year hockey clubs across the country where we support. And that makes a difference in the communities where we live and work, and that differentiates our brand from all the others.
Thank you. I will say when hometown hockey was in Burlington, the kids were fighting over your jerseys, so there you go for what that's worth. So I want to talk a little bit about, and keep it rather organic and have a contribution from all, around the topic specifically of creative marketing and marketing strategies. And I'm in the marketing department at Ryerson, and we talk all the time about how this business of marketing is changing every day. And we don't know what should be in curriculum in the next 5 years or the next 5 months. Mm-hmm. So bringing it back to sports specifically, I think it would be interesting if we can speak a little bit more about how each of you and your particular units are, whether you have specific examples of creative marketing, and we know you do, or how you're really approaching this new era of marketing and thinking about it creatively from a sport perspective. Laurie?
Okay.
Sorry.
I like it. Well, a couple of thoughts. We at the league traditionally are what we call third-party marketers. So we do partnerships, sponsorships with really, really premium brands that fit our objectives and buy into our vision. And once we do that, it's really important for us that they activate and that they go into the marketplace and represent our marks and our assets and our vision to the various different market segments. So giving Scotiabank a lot of credit is back in the day when we had our first discussions, they really bought into what our big event strategy was, what our media strategy was, and where we wanted to take the league. And so we now, and we also believe really strongly in long-term partnerships. You need to be able to invest and build equity, and that's what we've been able to do with Scotiabank. But a really, really powerful example that's close to my heart is Tim Hortons. They came to us and they had a fall sort of window that they needed filled. We had a licensee that was really struggling with relevance and as it relates to their product, specifically trading cards. So we had a discussion between Tim's and the trading card company in terms of, why don't we come together and create this fall program around trading cards, which I know you're like, oh, okay, sure. But what happened with that is that you have hundreds of millions of trading cards come into the marketplace and that appeal to youth and that appeal to children. And Cheri can attest to this. She is the one, the kitchen table example that sends me emails that, these children now recognize the players again, that they are driving purchase for Tim Hortons because it's a self-liquidating premium, so they're making money off it. It's working for us in terms of developing the profile of the players, which we sort of had gotten away from a little bit. And they really sort of put the power of Tim's behind a 360-degree program. And that included, doing digital support, TV support, radio, promotional support. They had some unique innovation on the cards in terms of AR. So all of these elements really created a strong program. But what I love about that program is sustainability, the ability to bring that back and create equity in the marketing program year after year and lift and adapt and build on it. So it's been extraordinarily successful. It's reinvigorated our licensee and brought them back to life in terms of a business partner. Tim's is incredibly pleased with it. And if you haven't seen the Kenyan video, the Kenyan Ice Lions, it was sort of this season's addition to the program, and it certainly has gone viral, and it will make you happy. It will bring you joy in your day. And so when, as a marketer, when you can bring joy to somebody and when that joy can be delivered on behalf of our product, which is the NHL, as well as Tim Hortons, then that's a success.
Perfect. I am the...
You are, right?
The hockey card trading icon.
Yeah.
Yes.
And does it bring them like a little pack of cards?
Yeah, and the Freds go on the street.
A moment of joy for $1.
So I'm always sending the photos.
Right?
Nothing worse than being a test case, my own children.
Absolutely.
Shannon?
Yeah.
Thanks, Laurie.
These days of marketing, being nimble and really challenging status quo is so important. This next generation of fans are sophisticated, they are online, they are just putting out a marketing campaign and not thinking that they don't have all the information at their hands to question you if you're not being authentic. Is like, you just have to be ahead of the game. Complacency is a killer. So we're always trying to think ahead. We're trying to think about what our fans want. We're trying to put our fans at the center of every conversation. A recent example that we were just out in the marketplace with last week is we relaunched our OVO Welcome Toronto jersey. And obviously that's aimed at a certain younger demographic. We are very focused on the way in which we deliver that communication. It's all online, it's digital. Obviously we have the help of a great global ambassador named Drake. He helps out quite a bit. He sends out one tweet and we have 500,000 likes instantly. We send out our video right after that. That just gives it credibility. So when anything that we're doing right now is all about design thinking. It's all like, how is our message going to land on the consumer, or in our case, our fan, and how is it important and relevant to them? So that's a small example of how we're just thinking through how we're delivering a message, what the message is. So now that jersey's out, next week is our OVO night, when our fans come into our building. Everything's black and gold. The jersey this year is white and gold, but that's an aside. The court is black and gold. Our uniforms are reflective that evening too. And then we have a follow-up event in the community, which we're giving back. We're building courts in and around the 6th with our friend. And it's everything you can think of in terms of what would our fans be asking for, what are they looking for. The expectation from a social corporate responsibility perspective is also checking the box. So content, being relevant, really challenging status quo, and making sure you're not complacent and continually trying to be ahead, trying to be the conversation, and being top of mind as a brand is really what we're constantly thinking about all the time.
Perfect, thanks.
I'm just going to add to that. I think for us, it's being intentional. So I think one of the unique things that we have is, and a challenge, is we basically have national marketing rights, yet 3/4 of those people don't come to our ballpark. So I think from a marketing strategy standpoint, we were always fearful to spend money nationally because it didn't always result in bums in the seats. And I think we've stepped back and been a little bit more intentional on realizing that we need to spend money in Vancouver, we need to spend money in Halifax. If we're going to claim that we are representing a country, we need to engage those fans in different ways. And I think being intentional is important. And I think the other thing we've really focused on is really knowing who our fans are. We've gone through extensive research just on fan segmentation in general, not only in baseball, but fan segmentation across Canada for baseball fans. And I think that's been an important process because you can't be intentional in your marketing without knowing who you're actually speaking to. And then further, not only who we're speaking to and who we're serving content to, but who's then actually purchasing and engaging. And then being okay to, I think, acknowledge that our engagement levels are not just purchasers. And I think that's been an organizational shift for us to realize that, if we are going to grow the game, that doesn't always mean bums in seats, and being okay with serving content to fans that are going to engage with us at a different level than just purchasing tickets.
Do you have a specific example you'd like to share in terms of how you've rethought about fan and fandom for the Jays, in terms of maybe is a good example for the conversation today around creative marketing strategies?
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying to Shannon, we did a winter tour, which was a big initiative under Paul, to kind of bring the caravan back and bring our players across the country. And when he brought this up to me 5 or 6 years ago, I literally rolled my eyes and said, "Are we really going to roll back the caravan?" And he said, "Yes, we're going to." And I think there was 2 things that came from that. One was just showing the country that we cared, and you might engage through Jamie or through Buck and Tabby through our brand in the summer, but we're going to bring our players to you. throughout the winter. And the crazy effect that had was, it was less even just the reaction of the fans, but our players. And what I found was our players started to talk the language without us feeding it to them. So you would hear Kevin, talking about how great it is to represent a country, and people would look at us and say, did you tell him to say that? And it was like, no, actually, he's been on the winter tour the past 3 or 4 years and had maybe some fun in Halifax, which we're okay with. But I think that was the first part. And then the second part was then looking at, well, then what are we doing for our local fan? And with Mark coming in, we had to educate him. He came from Cleveland, and he's the first to acknowledge that, he was an American running a team that's representing a country. And I give him a lot of credit for taking some steps back and really trying to understand our market and our country. And but he also pushed us for what are we doing for the local fan. And I was saying to Shannon this morning, we're running a fan festival, a winter festival, that's costing us a lot of money. And then when you sit in front of a table of, finance executives, they want to know what's the return on investment. And the return on investment is fan engagement. Because if we actually added the dollars per fans that enter the event, there's no real return. But we're looking to stay relevant in a market that is a hockey-driven market right now. And we're aware of that. And I think we need to be intentional in how we're servicing our fans, and be okay with the fact that we know we're not the number one sports team right now in the city, and we're okay with that because we know how we're engaging our fans and we're intentional in what we're doing. And I think that's been a big shift for us the past couple of years.
That's good. And I think the Caravan's a good example of some of the trends we see in general with millennial consumers around responsiveness and being authentic and more.
And it allows you to have that community
message,
angle that's difficult when guys are playing 162 games. I think that's the part that goes unnoticed in our business. It's hard. These players, as much as they need to give back, and 100% that's a necessity, especially as we're bringing young guys up through the system. It is a must and a shift we are making in our organization. I know something Brian's very good at, and I mean that is a big shift to give back, but it is still difficult when these guys are playing 162 games.
Good. Thank you. John?
So again, I'm the bank, and I look at this as the buy side. So we buy these assets, and if we don't do a really good job of using these assets in a creative way to engage consumers, whether it be through broadcast or through their mobile device or in some other fashion, then if you talk to consumers, they say, yeah, you bought that. You became the official bank of the NHL by writing a check. And that's not a good thing. You need to be relevant. So I go back to the whole thing about nothing. There's a couple things that move our brand equity scores up very quickly and aggressively, and hockey is one of those things. And our association with the NHL and our association with the teams all help tremendously. And I think what we step back and say is that the reason these things are successful for us is there's an alignment. There's an alignment with teams, there's an alignment with the league, and alignment with the players, that we have a shared vision. Grow the game, and if the game grows, it engages more consumers across the country, and if we are there as part of that, and we help with the minor hockey kids, growing the game, giving people access, those things are tremendously important to us. If Shannon is successful bringing the fans to their feet, they do it in Scotiabank Arena. Memories are made every time someone goes down to Scotiabank Arena. And if Scotiabank Arena was our first entry into to sponsorship marketing, it would be a very difficult justification. But it's not our first piece. We've been at it for a long time, and it just happens to be a jewel in the crown, or the crown jewel. And Shannon also mentioned about, said, sometimes MLSE has their friend help them out with a tweet or two. I've never met him, but you know what? When he has 3 concerts in a month and cancels one, Scotiabank Arena gets mentioned a lot. And the social media activity the night of one of his concerts is unbelievable. The excitement, the fun, the memories that are made, people that are proud to be at this concert, excited to be one of the 20,000 people that got into this concert at Scotiabank Arena. And so in the month of September, there were 27 million media mentions on Scotiabank Arena. 27 million. Hockey hasn't started yet in September. So now you couple that with, a set of values that the league has, that the teams have, that are aligned with ours. You talk about giving back in the community. We're able to, we're a large Canadian corporation that gives back in the communities where we live and work. We should. It's expected of us. But we do it in a very focused way. We want 70+% of our give back to be youth, young people in the community. If young people in the community are more successful, then great things happen over time. They are our future. So working with the partners who believe the same thing, taking the Raptors nationally, or you have the ability to, it's surprising, there are Leaf fans right across the country, even in Calgary. And so it's interesting. We're also the official bank of the Calgary Flames, just in case we want to catch those other fans. But it helps tremendously for us to be able to leverage those assets, and we talk about authenticity. Giving back in the community is important. Giving back in a relevant way is more important. And we need to be accountable to our shareholders. It's not our money. It's the shareholders' money that we're giving away. And they are very pleased with how it's being given away through supporting youth in the community and through sports, keeping people active. It's quite a good alignment of values, of vision, and it's been a 12-year overnight success.
John, have you been pleasantly surprised, or maybe not surprised, how quickly people have adapted Scotiabank Arena? I thought it's been amazing.
Yeah, we were told, we spent a lot of time with Google Analytics, and they were suggesting that it's about a month or month and a half for every year that the previous name was on the building it's going to take before you kind of overcome the previous name. And I'd say to you, back to the comment, if this was our first sponsorship activity, I believe that number would be right.
Yeah.
We are significantly ahead of that,
what you do.
which is good. So 3 things I'd say on that. One is all the things you can control. So from a marketing standpoint, what can you control? Change is tough. And so you change the name of a building. Okay, so this is good. Change the name of a building that's been named a certain way for 20 years. And then you're a bank. I mentioned that? Not everyone loves banks. So we have to work a little harder. So you have this, what do we do? We work really hard to make the change felt by the fans. So more to come, but everything from the Maple Leaf Square to entrances changing, helping working with MLC to make sure the fan experience is improved every aspect. We also, did simple fun things. In in first month, we changed the name. If you put in a Google search for,
I love that.
Air Canada Centre, a little video would pop up. It'd be Austin Matthews, and you'd say, "Hey, pal, I think you meant Scotiabank Arena."
Yeah.
Right. So you can have some fun with this as well.
Great.
And then there's kind of a third part that says things you can't control that you get lucky. So thank you very much, MLSE, for on July 1st, the official opening of Scotiabank Arena. They have a press conference. And just a little press conference to welcome you to Scotiabank Arena and introduce us to their newest player, John Tavares.
Yeah, that helps. All planned.
Right?
Yeah.
And then a couple weeks later, you trade this guy from the Raptors and bring in Kawhi Leonard. And again, the excitement around the teams is it's what it should be. It's about the teams. It's about the concerts that happen there. It's about the events that happen in there. We are putting those events and those experiences inside our brand, not our brand on those things. I mean, those things are coming into us. And so I'd say to you, there's you get lucky, but you control what you can control. And if you have your partners that have alignment in vision and alignment in values, you are setting yourself for good success.
Yeah, it's been well done.
That's good. No, it's a good prompt. One of the themes that has come up here and in this topic is around how, and Shannon, you talked about sophisticated fans. John, you talked about speaking to the fans. I'm just curious if you can comment on how this new marketing has allowed you to think about the fans in a different way, or conversely, how do you see some challenges and opportunities with the fans you're faced with today, and how are you responding accordingly within your own markets?
Well, I think what we're trying to do is trying to be a step ahead and seeing where our fans are. So a place and space we're now actively involved is in esports. In fact, the Raptors now have their own team called the Raptors Uprising, and their athletes, they're housed, they have their own house, they have their own gaming house, and that's the first. I think the NHL is going to follow along quickly. But that's not only important to our fans, it's important to our players. So we actually had a Leaf Gaming Day where we had our players come out and be playing. It was great content. They enjoyed themselves. Our fans enjoyed themselves. We aligned ourselves with the younger people here. We'll know FaZe Clan, which is an online gaming community. Similar to what we've done with Drake, is a great influencer on the Raptors. FaZe Clan really helped us on our Leafs gaming to be relevant to this audience. And my 12-year-old son said, "Oh, hey, you guys have a Leaf Gaming Day coming up." I'm like, "How do you know that?" And he's like, "There's a video online." I said, "Great, it's awesome. Working. We're getting to the right people." But I just, again, like, that's a space and a place. It's pretty scary. We're not sophisticated at it. The leagues are. Everyone's just navigating their way around it. But again, it's a place in which our brand lives and people are consuming our brand. So we need to be there in a relevant way and embracing it. So that's one area I think that's pretty important and that we're spending a lot of time and energy in.
And I'd say it's really interesting from our perspective as well. We have another program in our world in Canada called Scene, and it's a partnership with we have Cara Foods in there, or Recipe, sorry, and Cineplex. And that program we have about 9.5 million members in there. And there's a heavy concentration in kind of 18 to 34-year-olds. So putting Scotiabank's brand up against some of the e-gaming things over time probably is not the answer. It's probably to use more of our Scene connection and engaging those 18 to 24-year-olds in the space who from our standpoint are out there starting to look for banking solutions, and they have banking needs, but at the same time, digitally savvy, younger demographic who wants to engage differently than their parents did. And so this is a really interesting space for us as well. On the Raptors side, through our Tangerine connection. So Tangerine's the official bank of Toronto Raptors. We happen to own Tangerine, but it's a younger demographic, digitally savvy, and our go-to-market with the Raptors will be different than go-to-market with the Leafs because of that.
And your go-to-market with the NHL.
Yes.
Because we also, Scotiabank, came on board with us in terms of a test and learn. We talk a lot at the NHL about innovation and how do you do things differently. To Shannon's point, is you have to be thinking about your product and how it's being consumed and what's relevant. And so we as well, last spring, it was our first foray into the world of esports, and surprisingly successful. We approached it differently than the NBA, which we had actually heard from a couple of our owners that they were very thankful for. The NBA's model is where they needed to create their own teams. The Raptors have a team, so they were buying into an actual team, whereas we just ran it as an individual gaming competition. And we did regional finals here in Canada, in Europe, and in the US. And then we had a final done down in Vegas at the new gaming center there in the Luxor. And I was not a believer, I have to say, because I'm old. And so I literally, people were talking to me about it, and I'm like, this makes no sense. Somebody is watching somebody else. Yeah. Watching TV, like I just don't, and none of it's like I just didn't get it, and I get it now. Like you see that community, you understand how they get sucked in, you understand how it actually is a real competition, you understand the personalities, and essentially when you sort of start to break it down as a marketer, it's the ability to connect, and that is how they're connecting, how the youth are connecting now. And so fortunately, as I said, success, we had some really great numbers on Twitch. Now I know what Twitch is, so that's helpful. And so it's really been a great initial test. So now we will look to lift and adapt. We will look next year to improve on that. And I don't think this is, this is in addition to what you do, right? This is a small part of your overall marketing and communications and outreach. But it's going to be a thing, and so we're in it, and we're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I was saying, to build on that, I think for us it's really just understanding our fan journey and then understanding each segment and what that journey is, because I think the one thing we've realized in baseball is, sitting in the front row doesn't cut it anymore, because not only are they watching the game in front of them, but they're watching the game on their device, and then they're playing with someone or interacting with someone. And 9 innings of baseball, I mean, that's one of the challenges that we have in our sport, is just staying relevant with a younger demographic, but then also not alienating our families, which is probably our largest demo, and then our kind of true blue season ticket members. So I think that's one of the challenges that we have, not only in stadium, but even as we're serving content.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and just the last,
Sure.
I was thinking just now about, Scotiabank had came on board with us with the esports. And I do love when you have partners, or even as an organization, if you dedicate a real number, a real percentage of your budgets to innovation, just to like the shot in the dark, right? Just like let's try something different. Let's see what happens with that. Let's just let's be out there and just explore and learn, right? And it's so great because we are fortunate. Most of our partners are open to that conversation, and I think that's where the magic happens. And so I would suggest that to the marketers in the group, is really try and sort of carve out that ability to do differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not sure how
Hopefully.
you guys do it in hockey. I mean, one of the great things on the baseball side is the league does such a great job with MLB Advanced Media. I'm not sure how many of you guys are aware of MLBAM, but NHL now is aware. But one of the opportunity is really just pulling all the resources together on these types of things, whether it's gamification or whatever it is that we're looking at, and really collectively the teams coming together instead of viewing your team at your other teams. I mean, we don't view the Washington Nationals as competition by any means. From a best practice standpoint, we're on calls weekly just to figure out what we can do, and then the league investing dollars, and then finding those league sponsors that can go ahead and test some of these things in case each individual team doesn't have the resources to do so.
Yeah.
That's good.
No, that's a good segue into the innovation and design thinking, and how do you see best practices thinking about approaching these sport marketing problems in a different way. So you kind of started that conversation. Laurie, I don't know.
You want me to?
Sure.
Yeah, good. So, quite a number of years ago, it would have been probably 15 years ago, we did some work with IDEO. So a lot of you will know that name. They're very well known, a company out in California. And at that time, they actually sort of took a look at our game and our product. And it's something that has always been left with me, is that if your product isn't great, then you won't be able to sell it, to anybody. And so at that time, they were looking at pace of play, before that became a real thing. And they were looking at sort of how, and just weird kind of interesting things that could be done with technology. But what I think that we, the league, really do well is thinking a lot about the product. And that is, admittedly, that is not my area. But I do think that the GMs and hockey operations, I give them so much credit, because if the product on the ice isn't spectacular, it is a much more difficult job for me and for the marketers. And I think what you've seen now, I think our game has never been better, and it's the result of doing some interesting things that have been really at times, let's say, open to discussion. So, we have 3-on-3. We brought in 2 referees, you remember, back in the day. But you'll see you'll see in the players that, the shooting line and the checking line, that delta has really become small. All 4 lines are running really, really well, especially on the best teams. And so when you have a product that is so exceptional, then I can talk to marketers about, hey, our product is fantastic, our events are fantastic, our assets are great, our ratings are going in the right direction, we're doing these interesting things in the space of technology. We're at World Cup. You'll know we experimented with the DEDs, so the digital dashers, puck and player tracking you've read about, and we're continuing to focus in those areas. And those are the things that are really important. So again, though, I really, as sort of my own business discipline, is I always go back to the product. It's gotta be spectacular, and I'm really excited. You'll see now, with all the youth in our league and with the superstars, we're in a very, very good space. And I think, John, we talk a lot about the time to be involved in the NHL and with the Leafs, et cetera. Sorry. Is really, really great.
Listen, I hear what you're saying, and I come back to my words of alignment of vision, alignment of values, makes all the difference, right? If you look at a pyramid, a long time ago, we bought the top of the pyramid called the NHL, and if the NHL has problems, if the NHL is have ratings issues, if the NHL has substandard product, then everything below the pyramid starts to crumble. And so what's happened over the last dozen years that we've been actively involved with the NHL is that the product has gotten better. The league has gotten stronger. That the financials of the league are better than ever. Our involvement with the teams has been tremendous and value add right across the country. We have a couple of players under contract. Active players, so we have PK Subban and Austin Matthews. We have the alumni, so the entire alumni group is associated with us. We have Canadian Women's Hockey League, and it starts at the top of the pyramid, though. If that thing called the NHL is as exciting as it can be, and the product is epic, guess what? Everything else benefits all the way down right into that grassroots hockey, where kids sign up to actually want to play hockey. Right, and I bet you probably saw it in baseball when the Jays hit the playoffs. All of a sudden, I can't get my kid into Royal York baseball because all of a sudden, I'm like, before I could be a walk-on, and now they're selling out in the winter. So if the professional piece is working well, and you take that over to the NBA, and you have a model like the Jays, you got one team, Canada's team. Right? We the North, and there you have it. And for us, we had to do a deal with the NBA as well, so we could take them across the country. But notwithstanding that, we're excited because you get access to all the NBA assets, like the NHL assets. So it's All-Star and Draft and all of those premium things for our customers and for our potential customers. So we're kind of build that same model with a different audience.
And I think that's where you ask in return for, and that's where you want strong partners associated with your brand, because from a marketing standpoint, we need our national partners because they help us activate across the country. And I think it's a mutual relationship in the sense that yes, they can go ahead and take our marks, which mean nothing in the sense of really until you activate, that's really where you're going to get the engagement. So we really rely heavily on our national partners to help us activate across the country.
Shannon, did you want to add in there? I know you've spoken before about approaching things from the design thinking framework and be much more innovative in the company. So
our responsibility is not the product on the ice. We leave that to the front office. Much to the chagrin of my dad, who has lots to say about whatever's going on. But what we're doing right now,
we don't get a say.
Yeah, you don't. Nothing. Yeah, no. But what we're doing right now, from a design thinking, I keep going back to this perspective, is using technology to enable the experience. So we leave what's happening with the product on the ice, the front office, and it's up to us to bring our fans to their feet, not only in Scotiabank Arena, but outside the arena. So how are we using technology to enable that experience, elevate that experience? We have been just recently working with our teams to have in-seat ordering so our fans can sit in their seats and watch the game more. But then there's a byproduct of all these people are delivering food and people are standing up to get the food. So there's really a balance when you're using technology to make sure you're still delivering the best experience, but at the same time not impacting what people are there to see, which is the product. So we're spending a lot of time with technology, making sure that we're elevating the experience both in and out of arena.
Good, thanks. We only have a couple of minutes left. So I know which question I'm going to go to. On that point about innovation and technology, I was going to say another interesting element, if we had the time, I think is to talk about new ownership in sport. And there's a lot in the business of sport at the conference I'm going to about how the new Silicon Valley owners are opening up the mindset and the experience. So I think that's another interesting element if we had more time. But as we talk about new consumers and new opportunities in sport, I'm excited about, and it's validated by the group today, the opportunities and the power of the female all across the spectrum in sport. So, Laurie, I'm going to have you speak a little bit to some of the initiatives happening in the city. And Shannon, I know MLSE has also embraced the Female Sport Leadership Initiative, if I have that right. So I just thought we could, that's a lovely space to end it. Sorry, John. Yeah, I'm sure you can weigh in as well.
That's awesome. The power of women. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Cheri's alluding to some work that we're doing to bring a chapter of WISE, which is Women in Sports and Events and Entertainment, to Toronto. There's 17 chapters in the US, and myself and some amazing women are bringing that chapter here to Toronto. So really the purpose of WISE is going to be to connect and educate and empower and really provide a forum for women to come together. But really a clarity of that is that not without men, with men. So while it will have an objective, to professionally empower women and enhance their professional opportunities, we do that with men. And so this is a formal invitation for everybody as a result in this room to join WISE. Our first event is going to be on January 16th. And we would love to have you all there. I've seen some of the work that's been done in the US with this particular group. It's very, very strong. I think that women are incredible. Most men that I know think they're incredible too. So it's just about sort of giving them additional support. And as I said, it's really, I would say it's, connecting, learning, empowering professionally and personally women in the business of sports and entertainment.
Well, I'd like to congratulate Laurie because I believe it's you that's leading the whole WISE project, and it is huge over the border. And to the point about men being an important part of the conversation is Masai Ujiri was actually given the WISE Award in the States last year for all of his efforts in promoting women in sport. So it is something that we at MLSE are very passionate about, both men and women, to make sure that women are elevated to senior roles and are given the right resources to advance. So, but congratulations to you on bringing that forward. That's
thank you.
Amazing.
Good. So I think that concludes more or less our panel, unless we have one question from the audience today.
I have a question.
Brian?
Talk about the interplay between, is there a firewall between you and the hockey and basketball icons, or do they help you in the marketing side?
That's a great question. In fact, we have a great working relationship, as we did when Brian was there too, with the front office. In fact, everything that you see in the marketplace is vetted and worked with the front office. They are our biggest advocates, and in fact, I go back to what our fans now are so sophisticated. They know if something's authentic or not. And someone on the panel mentioned earlier too, it's like when you actually hear the players in the front office speaking in the same with the same narrative that you're out in the marketplace with, also like all of our team will hashtag We the North just because it's important to them as part of their identity. So we work very closely with them on every initiative that's out there. So thanks, Brian. Great question.
Go ahead.
My name is Dennis Ocher. I'm with the NHL alumni, although I spent the last 30 plus years in the technology industry. Just wanted to throw something out there. You're looking for different ways to reach your customers. One of the companies I used to work with has every household in North America psychodemographically profiled. So if you want to understand how to reach everybody in the country that fits the format or the demographics of your ideal customer, we have ways of doing that. So if anybody wants info on that, I'm up in this corner.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Perfect.
Well, on behalf of the PrimeTime organization, I just want to personally thank you for participating in the panel, and it's a great way to start the day. So thank you very much.
Thank you.